is Julia. I'm a vegan private chef here in Melbourne, and today we're going to be making a few recipes out of some of the abundance of lemons that you all might have in your backyards or your neighbors' yards. So we're going to start out with a lemon curd, which is going to go into a tart shell, which we're going to make as well, and that's going to combine to make a beautiful lemon tart. And then a bit later on we'll be making a raspberry goji lemonade as well. So first, we're going to combine the lemon juice. So we have 1 1/4 cups of lemon juice that I just freshly squeezed. So I'm going to pour that into my small saucepan. Next is going to be 1 cup of sugar. And then we have a couple tablespoons of freshly grated lemon zest. Put that in as well. And then just a little 1/4 teaspoon of salt just to balance out all of those sweet flavors. Okay, so now I'm just going to bring my wooden spoon in here, start mixing to dissolve all of the sugar into the lemon juice. And I'm gonna put that on a medium heat. So once that starts heating up, that sugar should get all dissolved in there. Okay, so just a little more stirring, making sure that it's fully blended through. And then I also combined 3 tablespoons of arrowroot, which is a starch that helps it thicken up a bit. And that I just combined with another 3 tablespoons of water. And that is going to go in here once we have all the sugar dissolved. Okay, looks like sugar is dissolved. Don't see any crystals or clumps in there. Starting to warm up a little bit. Okay, so we have a nice lemony liquid here, the lemon zest, sugar and salt. And then I'll bring in that mixture of the arrowroot and water. So again, that's going to help it thicken up so that it'll set for our nice lemon tart once it cools down. I'll just get all of that in there. Give that a stir, start mixing that in. Then we'll also add in 2 tablespoons of coconut milk. So I just have the kind from the carton. You can use the kind from the can as well if you have that. So this again just helps it become a little richer, creamier from that fat from the coconut milk and cream. So 2 tablespoons. I'm going to stir that through as well so it all becomes that one nice homogeneous mixture. So you can see it's just getting a little bit more of a paler yellow color here, getting all mixed through. So I'm just going to keep stirring this for about 8 minutes until some little bubbles start to form on the surface. Alright, so we have had our lemony mixture cooking here for around 8 minutes or so. You can see it's just starting to get some bubbles here, starting to come to a boil. It's getting nice and hot, starting to steam. So this is the point at which we add in 2 tablespoons of dairy-free butter. So I'm just using Nuttelex here. So I'm going to add in 2 flat tablespoons, and again that just helps it get a little more richness in there, a little butteriness. Okay, so there's our 2nd tablespoon. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep stirring this until the Nuttelex starts to fully melt and until it comes into the texture of a thick pudding. So that's going to take a few more minutes. So you want to take a look, just see how the dairy-free butter is just melting into the lemon juice and sugar, and it's just starting to get a little bit thicker here. So we'll just keep stirring for a few more minutes, and then when that's done, we'll set it aside to cool all the way down. Alright, so we're coming back to our lemon curd. I did add a little bit more thickener here because it wasn't quite thickening up after that several minute time period. So I just made another little slurry. So you just want to make sure if you do need to add a little more thickener that you put your arrowroot, or you can also use tapioca or even corn flour, and you mix it with the water first and then you add it in so you don't get the little clumps mixed through the curd. So now we have that nice thick pudding-like consistency, and it is going to continue to thicken as it cools as well. So I'm going to take it off the heat, And I'm going to pour it into a heat-proof dish. Get that all out of the pan, all that nice thick sticky lemon curd. Then I'm just gonna use a little piece of plastic wrap and just cover it so that it is actually touching the surface of the curd. And that just helps prevent a skin from forming on the top there. And then I'm just gonna cover it all the way around, seal it up around the sides. And then I'm just gonna let this fully cool to room temperature before I put it in the fridge. Let it chill in the fridge for about 2 hours till it's nice and cold, extra thick, and then we'll make our tart shell, and when that's ready, we'll pour it into our tart shell and we will have our beautiful lemon tart. All right, so now we're ready to make our tart crust, which is going to be the base for our lemon tart. So we're gonna start out by grinding some almonds. You can roast these first if you'd like, or you can just use the raw ones. So I have a 1/2 cup of almonds I'm gonna grind up in the food processor. Do a little bit more. All right, so now we have some finely ground almonds. So just a nice fine almond meal, not super fine, but pretty fine, just a little bit of texture left in there. And then I'm gonna put that into a large mixing bowl. Get it all out of the food processor. And then I'm going to separately blend the oats to make an oat flour. So if you already have almond meal or almond flour or oat flour, you can just use that directly, but otherwise you can use your food processor to make your own. So set that back up and put in a 1/2 cup of oats, which is just rolled oats, and grind that up as well into a flour. So now we have our oats all blended up as well. So again, I've just made that into a fairly fine flour. And I'm going to put that into the bowl with the ground up almonds. And then from there I'm going to add in some regular flour. So if you have a wholemeal pastry flour, you can use that. If not, which I didn't, I'm going to use part wholemeal flour and part pastry flour or cake flour. But if you don't have any of those, you can always just use plain flour as well. So that's 1 cup combined of the flours. And then I'm just going to add a little pinch of salt, again just to balance out the sweetness. Just a little pinch there, like 1/8 of a teaspoon. And I'm just going to whisk that all together, get it evenly stirred through, all those different flour components evenly mixed. Okay, so we'll set that to the side. Now we're going to mix our wet ingredients. So I've already put in a 1/4 cup of water in here. Then I'm going to also add a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. So that's where we're getting the sweetness from. Again, that just helps balance out the tartness from the lemons. But you can also use this tart shell for any other type of tart you have as well. And then I have a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, or whatever oil you like to use. Probably not coconut oil. Okay, so I'm gonna mix those until they're emulsified or just all blended together, not separated. Okay, so now we have that one stable mixture. We're gonna put it into the dry ingredients and just scrape that all in there, and we're gonna mix it through until it has the consistency of like a fine sand. Get a wooden spoon. All right, so now I've mixed in all of the wet and dry ingredients together, formed a nice ball of dough. I did have to add a little bit more flour, just depending on your flour. You might need a little more flour if it's too sticky, or a little bit more water if it's too dry. This is about right. You can just kind of barely tap it, and it's not pulling off on my finger. So I'm gonna grease my pan just so that it's easier to cut out when we're ready to serve it. You can also use baking paper if you wanna cut down on the oil a bit, or any kind of dairy-free butter as well. So I'm just gonna wipe that around the edges, up the sides. I'm just gonna go ahead and press my nice tart dough into my baking dish, whatever size that you'd like to make your tart into. You can find a dish of that size, start pressing it down, try to get it pretty even along the bottom and around the sides, just making sure you press in a little bit around the border as well so it doesn't get too thick in any one spot. So this one's coming up the sides. If yours just goes on the bottom and up the sides a little bit, that's fine too, as long as the the filling can stay in it. All right, so we have our nice tart shell here. So we're gonna bake the tart shell for about 20 minutes. So I preheated my oven already to 180 degrees Celsius. And then if you like at the end, if you want a little extra brown, you can turn on the grill for like the last 3 minutes or so. Get it that nice golden brown. Then once that's nice and golden, you can take it out, let it cool down, put your cold lemon curd in there, let that chill together, and then you should be ready to cut and serve. All right, so we're finally ready to assemble our final steps. So I've taken the pie crust out of the oven. You can see it just has a nice golden brown border around the edges. So that is all good to go. I've let it cool down. I've taken the curd out of the fridge, so that's had enough time to cool down as well. See how it's nice and thick there. Now I'm just gonna pour this into our tart shell. Here we go. Just smooth that out. And if you want to add anything on top, any fresh fruit or anything like that, that would be nice as well. All right, so now we're going to be moving over to our lemonade recipe. This is a raspberry and goji berry lemonade. So I'm gonna squeeze some more fresh lemon juice. I'm gonna pour that into my blender here. It's a high-speed blender. I've already strained the lemon juice out through a wire mesh strainer that I'm using. So that was about 2/3 of a cup of lemon juice. And then I have about a half a cup here of raspberries. I'm just using frozen raspberries that I've thawed out, but you can also use fresh raspberries or any other berries you like. So I'm gonna add that in, my half cup of thawed frozen raspberries. Okay, and then I have 2 tablespoons of goji berries. So these have a lot of antioxidants in them. They're like a little superfood, so you only need a little bit. So it's 2 tablespoons of goji berries. They come a bit dry, so I just soak them in some hot water to soften them up. And I'm just gonna take them out of the water, put them into the blender there. That just helps them blend a bit better if they've had that little time to soak. Okay, and then for my sweetener here, I'm going to, instead of sugar, I'm gonna use some maple syrup. You can also use agave syrup or even brown rice syrup, some kind of liquid sweetener. So that's half a cup of maple syrup I'm putting in. And then for the final ingredient, it's just some type of water. So I have about half sparkling water and half plain water. You can also use kombucha or any other kind of light fizzy beverage that you like. So it's about 3 cups total, so 1.5 still, 1.5 sparkling. Gonna pour that in. And then if you are using sparkling water, just be a bit careful here. Starting on a slower speed, just make sure it all stays in the blender. I'm gonna blend that up until everything gets fully mixed through in my high-speed blender. All right, so we have our nicely blended up raspberry goji lemonade. So you're welcome to drink it straight like this, or if you wanna just make sure you get all of those last little bits out, you can strain it through a fine mesh strainer or a nut milk bag and just get a really smooth lemonade. Just get that all through there. Alright, and then just pour myself a nice glass of homemade lemonade. And then I'll go ahead and bring over our raspberry lemonade, and here we have our 2 lemon dishes, and then I'll just let this set up a little bit more in the fridge, let it cool down fully, and then I'll have a beautiful sweet treat for the summer.